Hey there, I'm Sully, and as always, welcome to the Gun Club. Alrighty, tonight I decided to do something a little bit lighter, a little bit more interesting for a little while. We're going to talk a little bit about good guys and girls with guns. Now, definitely, it's always good guys and gals and girls with guns because several of the stories we'll be covering tonight involve a female firearms owner. They're actually one of the largest growing groups we see in the firearms industry, and I support that 100%. I actually spend a lot of my time out at the range teaching ladies how to shoot or helping them learn how to shoot or helping them become more comfortable with firearms. And so as a result, I'm kind of, a little bit jaded maybe because I enjoy seeing them taking responsibility for their own safety, taking responsibility to be their own first responder. After all, as much as we'd love to hope that 911 will always get there in time, we know that when seconds count, police can be minutes away. I'm not faulting the law enforcement guys and gals. They are getting stretched 18 ways from Sunday. Trust me, I've worked for a public safety government agency, and I know what that is well too well. On the other side of that coin, people being able to protect themselves, protect their families, take care of themselves, and make sure that they're a defender, not a statistic or a victim. Always good to see. So tonight I wanted to sort of circle around good guys or gals with a gun. Also, a little bit later on, we're going to get into some of the craziness that's going on in New Mexico. If you're not familiar, well, you'll believe it when you see it. Michelle Lujan Grisham, the governor of New Mexico, quite frankly, Lujan has gone off her rocker. Sorry, but she is. And we'll talk about some of her issues here as we get later on into the show. But to start off, I wanted to do something positive, something fun. Talk about some of the good guys and gals with guns. Now, back in the early 2020s, there was a study done by the CDC that came out and said there were about 500,000 to 1.6 million defensive firearms uses a year. Now, not all of these involved a shooting, not all of these involved someone getting killed. Actually, a lot of them didn't. A lot of them involved somebody being approached or someone coming up to them and them saying, look, leave me alone, displaying their firearm in such a way as to make the person consider better of the idea. It's sort of to say, look, I'm not a victim and I'm not going to be a victim, and if you're trying to make me a victim, well, your selection criteria for targets is a little bit out of whack. Ideally, those are the best ones, where the bad guy runs off, or the bad guy says, yeah, never mind, thought better of it. The bad guy says, yeah, I know I have this knife in my hand, but I'm not going to use it. Can I keep my knife, please? Thank you very much, and I leave. Ideally, those are the perfect ones. Now, by nature, some of these unfortunately end up with someone getting shot or losing their life. Unfortunately, that is just a fact of life. I pulled an article sort of to start off with when they talk about a comprehensive study of gun owners. They did this study back in 2022, and they talked about overall adult gun ownership is about 32 to 33%, and that's fairly consistent between Gallup and the Pew Research Center. They talk about how the rate varies based on ethnic groups, about 25% in the African American community, 28% for Hispanics, 19% among Asians, and 34% among whites. They also say that males at that time, again, at that time, accounted for 58% of gun owners. We know that that's actually gone up a little bit. So, hey, we're trying to get our more and more females involved in firearm ownership. I know there's some great organizations that are really working with that kind of stuff. One of them that I know that we've supported in the past is We the Female. You can check them out. They do a lot of work as far as helping females find low-cost courses. We also have sponsored some of their events, some of their fundraisers. Honestly, it's run by a young lady by the name of Carrie Sloan. Young lady, I'm sure she'd love to hear me use that term, but a lady by the name of Carrie Sloan, right out of downstate Georgia from below us here. And they work a lot, especially with domestic violence victims, survivors of that type of thing, helping them become their own defenders, become their own protectors. So from that side, hey, We've got a lot of respect for Carrie and what she does, and so therefore, again, we support her organization, We the Female. Now, when we talk about some of the stuff as far as defensive gun uses, they have a really large sample in this. And it talks about that Americans own 415 million firearms, including about 171 million handguns, 146 million rifles, and 98 million shotguns. 30% of the people reported that they had ever owned an AR or a similar rifle. So that's one of those big bad assault rifles. Yeah, we'll talk about that later. Don't know what an assault rifle is. I've never met a rifle that wanted to assault me. Met a couple that left bruises, but we won't talk about that. Now, when we get into some of the situation, they talk about, there are 44 million AR-style rifles in this country right now. When you look at 44 million AR-style rifles, what does that say? Well, one reason that we see them being commonplace in some of the negative stories the media loves to run about them is they are the most common rifle sold in this country. Fact of life, if there were the most common color of vehicle was red, guess what? The most common color of vehicle involved in a wreck would be red. Does it mean that red vehicles are bad? No, it's called simple probability, law of averages. Beyond that, let's get into the fact that there are 542 million magazines with capacities over 10 rounds already in circulation. I account for some of those. But, okay, so a large capacity magazine and an AR platform rifle, that's a common home defense firearm. That's a common, possibly a hunting firearm, depending what you're hunting for. I know people say you don't use an AR-15 to hunt for deer. Well, depending on what caliber it is, you can use it to hunt for about anything. So again, looking at those estimates, it's a very common rifle, and you can easily change out the uppers and put different calibers into it. You can have it in 223, 5.56. You can have it up in the 300 blackouts, and you can get it, I believe, up in 454. So again, lots of different options. Now, when they talk about, again, people who try to have defensive gun uses, how many does that really happen? Does it really happen? Because the media wouldn't let you know that. And that's why, we kind of do these streams like this because of the fact the media doesn't want to tell you the truth. Unfortunately, they don't. I'm just going through some of the recent ones here. I follow a couple of different platforms. And before we get into them, let's see who we've got in the chat. I see we've got Lizzie Pine. She says good evening, or hi, Lovey. She's dropped by. I know I've taken her to the range a couple times, or once we've gone to the range, and then once she was actually riding around stuck with me when we were actually looking at gun stores trying to find guns and looking for something to buy. But again, something that we do pretty regularly. Who else we've got? I know we've got about 15 watching on Rumble. Folks, give me a holler where you're at, where you're from, what's going on in your world. Feel free to ask a question if you've got it. We always welcome questions here. And again, I'll do my best to answer them. If I can't do it tonight, I will find an answer for you somewhere out there in the great world of the internet. Yes, you'd be surprised. You can actually do things on the internet besides look at porn. And so, hey, it's always good. So, let's look at some of these incidents of good guys or girls or gals with guns. Now, we'll start with our first one. Springdale, Arkansas. This was January 11th, so about a week ago. 29-year-old male is arguing with a female. He then became physical. He slapped her in the face. Her child tried to intervene and got slammed into the doorway, injuring his head. Okay, so this guy has now slapped the female, and he slammed the child into a doorway. Mother at this time draws her firearm, fires one round. He was injured, not killed. He fled and was later picked up at the hospital. This is a straightforward domestic situation. He's out of line. He's smacking her around, slams the child's head into the doorway. Come on, man. It's bad enough that he wants to raise his hand and slap her in the face. But when you want to smack the child and bounce his head off the door frame, you know what? I got a problem with that. The guy who got shot, Fortunately, I guess for him, it wasn't a shot in the crotch, although he really deserves to be denuded, in my opinion. My opinion, I'll call it. But again, what is she dealing with here? She's dealing with a physical assailant who is potentially larger, stronger than she is, and she defended herself and her child. You know, apparently, him slapping her in the face wasn't that bad. She put up with that. She shouldn't, but okay, she did. But then after he banks the child's head off the wall or off the door frame, the mama bear came out, and we saw how well that worked out for him. He got himself shot. Moving onward to the next day, Sanford, North Carolina, January 12th, 2024. And you'll see a pattern here. I got one on the 11th. I got one on the 12th. I don't even have to look that far for most of these. Honestly, you can find them. There's 2 or 3 sites that track them pretty regularly and actually attach the news stories. It kind of goes to show. But the media doesn't want to talk about these. Why is that? Well, anyone know why? Because they want you to believe guns are bad. They would hate for you when it comes time to say, should we support all kinds of gun bans and gun restrictions and gun rules? They'd hate for you to think of this woman defending her and herself and her child. They don't want you to think about that. They want to talk bad stuff. So this is interesting. It's Sanford, North Carolina, January 12th. A man is fleeing from a police drug raid. He apparently escaped the house that they were raiding, went out through the woods. He ran about 2 blocks away, at which point he broke into a house there. He, however, when he broke into the house, ran into an armed homeowner who confronted him. That armed homeowner, although no shots fired, the suspect immediately decided better of breaking into this individual's house, and he ran and took off from there. Imagine that. You are being chased by the police, you break into someone's house, and you run into the fact that the person's armed and says, yeah, it's my house, wrong answer. Now let's look at this from the side of the homeowner. Did that homeowner do anything wrong? Was there a risk factor that they're sitting in their house and some psycho breaks in to hide from the police? But fortunately, they were able to protect themselves. How does this work out without other words? Who knows? Maybe they're tied up so they can't contact anybody. Maybe nothing happens to them. I don't know. But we don't have to worry about that because that homeowner, under North Carolina's castle doctrine, protected their castle. No, you're not hiding here. Get out of here. Then proceeded to call law enforcement, and the suspect was arrested shortly thereafter. No shots fired, but it sent the home invader out the back door the same way he came in. Good job. Yeah, okay, let's go. Oh, we got Minnie in the chat tonight. Yeah, don't mess with the mama bear. Definitely don't do that. Not a good thing. Okay, now we're in Peoria, Illinois on January 14th. 2 days later. Again, I can find these all day. Now, this one is interesting. 2 people traveled to Peoria, Illinois based on a Facebook Marketplace deal. They were there looking at purchasing a vehicle that was listed for sale on Facebook Marketplace. They went to the city of Peoria, and upon arrival, they were directed to where to look at the car to inspect their potential purchase. However, when they got there, they were jumped by multiple people. Now, this brings up a really good point. I know people do all kinds of Facebook deals and Craigslist deals and eBay deals and online selling platform and everything else. These 2 people went to meet someone they did not know, presumably about buying a car, may well have had some cash. In this case, it was a car. I've seen it for an iPhone, I've seen it for PlayStations, I've seen all kinds of things that are setups. Set up for what? Armed robbery, why not? Yeah, come on and buy this PlayStation. I'll sell it to you for $100, but I'm not taking a check. It's cash only. Someone shows up with $100 cash. Heck, screw a gun in their ear. Why not? Well, apparently this is why not. When they got jumped by several people, the buyers were able to fire a shot. Shots were actually fired at one point by both sides. The suspect, or one of the suspects, was wounded, 18 years old. Sadly, he passed away at the scene. One of the victims was a legal firearms owner. He had a permit. He was totally legal, and there are no charges being filed. They say it's clearly self-defense, as these two people were jumped by a mob trying to rob them and set them up. So it is what it is. Fortunately, this individual, while going to a strange city to meet strange people, carrying lots of amounts of cash, kind of on edge, fortunately, they were able to defend themselves, and they came out unscathed. And legally unscathed, even out of Illinois. Imagine that. Apparently, the DAs in Peoria have a little bit more sense than the DAs up in Chicago do. But that's case in point. Now, the local sheriff did mention a lot about, well, they do meetups and exchanges and transaction stuff at law enforcement agencies and possibly choose better areas to do it. But these people were from out of town. They didn't realize they were going to a bad area. They're trying to buy a vehicle for someone on Facebook Marketplace. Simple enough. I mean, I've had transactions on Facebook Marketplace where I've gone and met with people, and I brought cash with me to buy an item. Now, nothing as big as a car, nothing as pricey as a car, but on the other side of the coin, what's to stop these idiots from doing this? Folks, it happens, and sadly it happens more than you know. And that's again where John Q. Citizen or Jane Q. Citizen protects him or herself, and why and how. Because it's their right. Again, we talk about the Second Amendment a lot on this channel, and people say, well, you don't need an AR-15 or a 15-round magazine capacity to hunt deer. The Second Amendment was never about hunting deer. It was about protecting yourself, protecting your family. It was about when a bunch of idiots jump off at you, that you've got the ability to protect yourself, protect your family. Be the mama bear protector like the lady in our first story was. And so again, from that standpoint, good guy with a gun. Our next one, 2 days later, from Texas. I'd love to pronounce the name here, but I don't even know how to pronounce it, how to start pronouncing it. Atascosa, I believe, Texas. A woman there shot her estranged common-law husband. They apparently had been estranged, been separated for a while, and things had been escalating. He wasn't particularly happy about the separation, I gather. Anyway, he forced his way in the back door of the house, kicking in the door at about 1 a.m., and armed with a handgun. Now, okay, I get if they're trying to reconcile, I get if they're trying to work things out, I get if they're still talking or trying to negotiate the divorce, but you don't kick someone's back door in at 1 o'clock in the morning armed with a handgun there to talk. So, what happens? Well, this lady was able to fire shots and took care of the problem, ended the threat, so to speak. Now, it's interesting to note that Houston PD came out, and Precinct 4 PD came out and said they had been there twice in the 24 hours prior to the accident. So in the 24-hour window prior to him kicking in the door at 1 a.m., the PD had been out there twice. Both times he fled prior to arrival of the PD. The police went to the DA and tried to get a warrant on him, but the DA said they weren't sure and needed to get some more information, so they wouldn't even file a warrant to pick this man up. After what? Being out there twice for him within the same day? Well, that night, 1 a.m., he decides he's going to kick in the door with a gun, and again, when seconds counted, police were minutes away. This lady, again, fortunately able to protect herself. I don't cheer the fact that somebody got shot here. I'm not happy about that, don't get me wrong. On the other side of that coin, if somebody was going to get shot, I'd much rather that the bad guy who kicked in the door with the handgun get shot than the lady who's just protecting herself, the lady who's done everything right, the lady who's been on the phone with the police twice. the police who get there as quickly as they can. Scotty doesn't beam them down. And again, they tried to get a warrant. The cops tried to do their job. The DA, for whatever reason, wanted to find out more and get more information before they did that. Well, they got more information at 1 o'clock in the morning. Now, my question is, right now, if this lady had not had the firearm that she had, how do you think this works out? Yeah, exactly. Not really good for the home team. Now, I pulled these 4 off of a couple different bulletin boards, a couple different sites I watch. But again, generally, you can check out on the Heritage Foundation. They have a big defensive gun use thing. They map it all over the country, and you can look for things in your neighborhood or in your area. You can look for things within the last 90 days or within the last, so long, or all the last year. Defensive gun uses generally are a hell of a lot more likely than you would think they are. And the reason we don't hear about them, it's hard. If you were hearing all this stuff about people defending themselves with guns, if you were hearing all of this stuff about women being empowered to deal with abusive asshole exes, I said it, yes, sorry, with guns, it would be really kind of hard to do the whole banning thing, wouldn't it? But on the other side of that coin, what do we have here? We can show all these defensive gun uses. So from that standpoint, so far so good. We've got those 4 cases. Now, we're going to move on a little bit from that, and let's talk about New Mexico. And for those of y'all who live there, I don't live in New Mexico, and boy, am I glad right now I don't. Things have gone kind of batshit crazy out there. Quite frankly, I think Governor Michelle Lujan Wuhan Grisham has lost her mind. If you don't recall, back in September of 2023, she passed a public health order stating that anybody, regardless of whether you had a permit or not from the state, could carry a concealed weapon, legally, lawfully owned concealed weapon. No law-abiding gun owner should carry a weapon in Albuquerque City or in the entirety of Bernalillo County. Quite frankly, when this story started back in September, I didn't even know how to spell Bernalillo. Now I've unfortunately gotten rather good at it. Now, she passed this as a public health order. When people questioned it, she stated that, well, she's the governor and your constitutional rights are not absolute. If she feels that she needs to restrict them, she can and will and did. Now, this got so bad, the local sheriff from Bernalillo County, he had a clip of him on the video. The chief of police from Albuquerque, both were like, yeah, we're not even going to get to the point of trying to enforce this garbage. Just as you're kind of crossing a line over there, lady. We're all about helping out, get rid of gun violence, but I think she's off her rocker. A couple days later, the state attorney general in the state of New Mexico stated that he refused, if it went to court, to back her up. Now, usually, the state AG, state attorney general, is the attorney for the state, for the governor, and anything for their official capacity kind of thing. Yeah, the state attorney general said he would not touch this with a 10-foot pole. But she said it's okay. Your rights are subject to what Governor Grisham said. That made for a couple of good shows. There was a big pushback on it, and it got kind of blown out in court, and the court blocked a bunch of the restrictions. But on the other side of that coin, you look at it and say, what happened, it's done. Yeah, exactly. Your constitutional rights are not absolute. Well, according to the governor of New Mexico, your rights, she can suspend them as she needs to. Well, that was supposed to be a temporary order, started back in September. The court threw out a bunch of it, although they did keep it in place only for parks and playgrounds. Now, I did a little bit of a push at that point, and I said I wasn't a fan of it. Why? Where do you think people go? Fill in the blank here. single blank take their kids to public parks and playgrounds. Single parents, single mothers, single dads, you know, they get the kid, they get home from work, they get the munchkin from, wherever. And I did not like the idea of the parks and playgrounds. Now, her version of it is, oh, nobody needs a gun at a park or a playground. My version of it is, if someone's looking to snatch a kid, what better place to do it? In a nice big crowded park or playground where you can get in there and it's so chaotic, and a lot of times the parents will be sitting off to the side on a bench. You'll have 2 or 3 parents, and if they're not paying attention to the kids, before you know, little Johnny or Janie goes over with the man in the white van to help him find his puppy, or gets in the van with the free candy or whatever else. Folks, we've seen it happen one too many times. It's one of the greatest ways to do it. The parents are distracted, the kids are distracted, there's separate distance from each other. There's not really a good visual line of sight through some of these playgrounds because of all sorts of climbing things. I mean, let's face it, it's going to be hard-pressed to get a kid away from a parent when they're 3 feet away at the mall, and there's nothing in between them. You have a kid who's 30 feet across a playground with a bunch of stuff intervening, it's a good place. Beyond that, since everybody knows that mommies can't be armed at any of these parks or playgrounds, what better place to go? I guess if you want to steal a wallet or a purse, if you're in Bernalillo County or in New Mexico, Michelle Lujan Gresham has made sure that every mother in the playground is unarmed and vulnerable. She likes it that way. So that was her great idea. To me, I've always said that, one of our, most precious possessions, and I don't want to say possessions, most precious things in our lives are kids. And as a non-parent, I can say that. That's the ones you'd pretty much do anything in the world to protect. But that's okay. When you take them to a playground, you can't protect them. Because I can promise you, the bad guys know where to go. Now, she got a lot of fight with this and everything else, and by about the end of October, it was over. Well, she has currently introduced a whole shit stack, and I will say shit stack, of more legislation trying to ban guns. She's on her anti-gun quest. So anyway, Lujan Grisham has come out wanting to push and has filed for an assault weapons ban, a 14-day waiting period to purchase, and that's 14 business days. So it honestly works out to about 18 to 20, depending on how weekends fall, or holidays or other things like that. So again, looking at that, how do waiting periods work? Well, they affect people buying guns legally. They affect law-abiding citizens. Okay? Do waiting periods affect criminals who are buying guns from each other on the side of the road? No. Do waiting periods affect 14 or 15-year-olds like in our story last week? No, they're exempt from waiting periods because they're felons. That's okay. Furthermore, she wants to ban firearms at polling places, parks, and playgrounds. She wants to raise the limit to purchase any firearm from 18 for rifles up to 21 for everybody. Now, this is really interesting. The Supreme Court just addressed this last month, or within the last month, stating that no. People at 18 can buy handguns. Now, they're still sorting out the law, but the Supreme Court already said that 18 is adult enough to own a firearm. But, I guess she's better than the Supreme Court. After all, she can ignore parts of the Constitution, so she's going to do this. Now, the ban up to 21 years of age, I'm over 21. It doesn't affect me. So you're 18. You can buy a house. You can buy a car. You can sign up to serve your country. You can be drafted by selective service. But, you can't go buy a handgun. Or if she gets her way, you can't even buy a rifle or a shotgun. Wrong answer. And the interesting part is she is registered as a Democrat. These are the same people that want to decrease the voting age and say that we need to drop the voting age to 16 because 16-year-olds have a right to be able to determine the future of our country. And at the same time, they're wanting to increase the age to buy a handgun or a rifle or a shotgun to 21. Doesn't make sense. They're talking out of both sides of their mouth. Now, furthermore, she wants to increase penalties for felons with firearms, and she wants to expand red flag laws. Now, expanding red flag laws, personally, they're unconstitutional on their framework. For example, and I'm going to say this, let's say that my ex-girlfriend is a crappy driver. I think she's honestly an idiot driver. She drives down the road, she's texting on her phone, she's putting on her makeup, she's doing all sorts of stupid things. Could I sit there and very easily just call up and say, I want her driver's license taken away? And, I think she's dangerous. Now, again, if you use their logic, if it saves one life, yeah. So we can violate people's civil rights. And she's openly encouraging people to call up and get people red flagged. I'm sorry, the fact that, you're literally being judged as guilty and you have to go prove yourself innocent at your own expense, I think is garbage. But that's me. What would I know, right? Now, I will say one thing really nice in response to Crazy Grisham stuff. And I mean, honestly, we're going to be seeing a lot on this channel out of this New Mexico stuff because I've been following it. And it's, not only is it, something we need to watch and be worried about, but we also need to sit there and say, look, we're going to support our brothers and sisters in the 2A community in New Mexico, and hopefully they'll do it when or if our local governors try to do anything crazy. I will say that I've been following Representative Stephanie Lord out in New Mexico. Her Twitter is a pretty good follow, gives me a pretty good update on all this. And Stephanie and some of the other representatives in New Mexico are actually trying to impeach Lujan Grisham, which, as Minnie said, your constitutional rights are not absolute. The hell you say? Yeah, well, they are trying to impeach her for saying such a thing. Because I'm sorry if you watched the video, and I think we played it here one time. As this goes on, I may try to play it again. She literally sat there and said, well, I know I'm going to get some pushback, but constitutional rights aren't always absolute. And sometimes the government just needs to step in. Now, she took an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution when she got sworn in. So again, fortunately, some people in the legislature out there in New Mexico are trying to get her sworn out. Until then, she will be sworn at. Plenty, I promise you. But beyond that, what else do we have? Well, let's see here. A story that came out of Ohio. A little while ago, Ohio enacted constitutional carry. They were actually allowing more and more carry of firearms in Ohio. In I believe it was about 8 months or so since that went into effect, crimes in 6 of the 8 major cities are down in Ohio. Now, the reason I bring this up isn't that I really particularly care about Ohio. I'm down here in South Carolina. They're a lot colder up there. We're at about 43 degrees here today, probably dropped to 20 tonight. But every time a state gets ready to either start putting carry permits in, make carry permits easier to get to permitless carry, get to open carry, every time we hear it, we hear the anti-guns grabbers or anti-gun idiots, more like a better term, come out and say, oh, well, blood's going to be flowing in the street. You're turning this into the Wild West. There's going to be bodies everywhere. People will be shooting each other on street corners. And every time, yet it failed to materialize. I wonder why. They used the same scare tactics, fear-mongering, fear porn, trying to get you scared. They try to get you scared that an AR-15 is big and mean. Minnie, if you're in the chat, Let me know what you think about an AR-15. Let me know. I don't know, she was in the chat earlier, folks, on the Rumble channel. We're still holding really good on the Rumble chat. For some reason, we're getting suppressed really bad on YouTube, but that's okay. I could really give a rat's ass about YouTube some days. I will say, please like, share us out on Rumble. If you catch the video on YouTube, pimp us out and share us out there too as well. But as it goes right now, our primary video library is definitely on Rumble, and we have been enjoying our stay over here in Mr. Pavlovsky's free speech haven. Speaking of Rumble and the free speech, we will be doing another late night Rumble rant tomorrow night. It will be some Quora stuff, I know that. I've also looked at a few other things. I've got a couple of editorials from various newspapers that we'll be reading and reacting to and sort of let them know what we think about them. And yes, it most likely will be fueled by an adult beverage or two and some Rumble exclusive content. Because as always, we do love our Rumble exclusive content. Actually, I love doing stuff on Rumble. It's so much fun. I also, while we're having a moment here waiting to see what Minnie has to say about ARs, if she does jump in there, I want to remind you that I also work with VALOR Medical Academy, and we have our online continuing education platform. That is for any EMS employee or EMS provider, EMT, advanced EMT, or paramedic. You get a 15% discount on any class or package using coupon code GUNCLUB. You can check it out at academy.valormed.net. It is, all the classes are CAPCE accredited, good for all level providers nationwide. And we do offer direct import to the National Registry of EMTs. So that's always good. Let's see. Did you really just say pimp you out? Yes, I'm pimping out a little bit of Valor for right now. And now I think I'll pimp out a little bit of coffee. Because we are also fueled by Blackout Coffee. If you can't tell, I'm just a little bit caffeinated today. Now, we had a coffee sponsor riding with us before, and we love them dearly, don't have any problem with them. However, they want to be neutral. They want to be non-committal. They want to be middle of the road. Blackout Coffee has come out with special blends, not only for the gun owners of America up on the top, but also the Firearm Policy Coalition, their Patriot Roast. They've got all sorts of flavors. Cinnamon French Toast is one of the big ones in my office staff, I can tell you. And as well as assorted other coffee in K-Cups, regular grinds, regular blends. We absolutely love their stuff, and we do have a promo code for them. Gun Club 20 gets you 20% off on Blackout Coffee. So, again, try them out, check them out. They support us. They support the 2A community as a whole. And so we decided to go with them and support Blackout Coffee. And I will say their coffee is absolutely damn good. I love it, so love to do that. Okay, I've got Minnie finally answered up in the chat. Says, AR-15, love it. So much fun to shoot. Yes, that's right. So much fun to shoot. Somebody who has minimal firearms experience went out to the range with an instructor, and in under an hour or so on the range, was comfortable shooting an AR. Not only that, but she brought her mommy to the range with us, and even her mommy shot ARs. And they both actually liked them. So, yeah, this is the big, bad, scary AR that everybody would tell you it's so bad, so awful. They fearmonger it, they fear porn it, whatever you want to say. And the end result, what do we have? If you're not familiar, you're paranoid about it. If you are familiar, well, it is what it is. But, again, the media lies. Alrighty, well, that is about all I've got for tonight, folks. I definitely appreciate you coming out, hanging out. We're going to be, again, like I said, doing the live stream tomorrow night. It will be a late night live stream, probably 11 or later. I'm going to be trying to sort out my timelines for tomorrow. I have been doing some appearances on Sergeant Sniper's podcasts on the weekends, so depending on what he's doing tomorrow, if I'm on that show with him or not, or what's going on, if I'm on with him, I'll put out a note on our Twitter page, but it'll go live after he gets done with his show, because I always enjoy watching his show. He's always got some fun content on there, and some interesting observations. But that's all I've got, folks. Have a wonderful evening. Take care. Be safe. Be smart. Bye.